All right, so let's talk about Linux, but probably not in the way you're used to thinking about it. See, this isn't just about picking a free operating system, it's about something way bigger, way more fundamental. It's about taking back control of your own digital life, achieving what you could call digital sovereignty.
To really wrap our heads around this, we actually have to start with a kind of old-school technical term, data independence. In the world of computer science, all this really meant was that you could change how a database was organized on the back end without completely breaking every application that needed to use it. It was all about creating separation.
But let's be real, that definition is a little dry, right? Kind of academic. The thing is, this concept is more urgent and more personal today than it has ever been. I mean, think about it. We're in an era where our data is just everywhere. It's being managed by companies we have zero control over. So what does independence even mean in that kind of world?
And this is where it all clicks. The concept has totally shifted. Back then, the idea was about freeing an application from a data structure. But now, the new, modern fight is about freeing you from a specific vendor's ecosystem. It's the exact same core principle of separation, but now we're applying it to our entire digital lives.
This brings us right to the heart of the conflict in our digital age: data dependence. The major operating systems that, let's face it, most of us use every single day, they aren't just products. They are platforms that are specifically engineered to make you dependent on their services.
Let's break down how this is actually built. Take Windows. It has deep systemic telemetry baked right into its core, and some of it is mandatory. You literally cannot turn it all off. Then you've got macOS, which is architecturally built on this incredibly deep integration with iCloud. Ultimately, what's the goal here? Both of these systems are designed to be data-gathering endpoints, funneling your information straight into their parent company's massive cloud platforms.
And make no mistake, this isn't just about making the OS better for you. The strategic goal here is something called vendor lock-in. The whole design encourages you, and in some cases pretty much forces you, to store your data in their services using their tools, which makes it incredibly difficult and painful to ever leave.
Now, what's so powerful here is how clearly this lays out the totally different philosophies. With Windows and macOS, telemetry is either mandatory or opt-out. The cloud is deeply fused into everything, and the code itself is a complete black box. But with a typical Linux distribution, telemetry is opt-in if it even exists at all. There is no default cloud service being pushed on you, and the code is open for literally anyone to inspect. The incentives are just fundamentally different.
And this fundamental difference in philosophy leads us directly to the Linux approach. It's so much more than just a piece of software. It's a completely different way of thinking, one that's built from the ground up on user control and a radical transparency.
Think about it this way. Proprietary systems work on a trust me model. You just have to trust that the company is doing the right thing inside that black box of code you can't see. The Linux model, on the other hand, is verify me. Because the source code is open, anyone in the world with the technical know-how can pop the hood and audit it for hidden data collection or anything else. Trust isn't demanded, it's earned through verification.
This transparency creates something incredible, what you could call a community immune system. And there is no better example of this than what happened with Ubuntu, one of the most popular Linux distributions. Its parent company, Canonical, decided it would be a good idea to integrate Amazon search results directly into the desktop's main search function.
Well, the reaction was immediate, and it was hostile. As one user put it, the community absolutely hammered them for years over what they saw as a massive betrayal of trust. The bad press was relentless, and eventually Canonical was pretty much forced to remove the feature entirely.
This whole episode reveals two powerful checks and balances that simply don't exist in the proprietary world. First, you get public backlash from a community that can actually read the code and understand the implications. Second, and maybe more importantly, users can just leave. They can switch to a different Linux distribution. Or developers can fork the code. That is, they can copy the entire source code and create a brand new version without the feature they don't like. That kind of power, well, it keeps vendors honest.
So, this philosophy of control isn't just some vague idea. It's built directly into the architecture of the system itself, creating a full stack of independence, from the very lowest level all the way up.
We all know about standard user permissions, right? You use them to protect your files from other users. But there's a huge weakness there. Any program you run inherits all of your permissions. So if your web browser gets compromised by malware, that malware can now read, write, and delete every single personal file you own.
This is where a system called SCA Linux comes in. and it's a total game changer. First, it puts a security label on everything. Your web browser process gets a label, and your personal documents get a different label. Then, the Linux kernel itself enforces a system-wide policy. So the bottom line is, if your browser gets compromised, it's trapped. The policy says the web browser label is not allowed to touch files with the personal documents label, even though you, the user, technically own both. The attack is stopped dead.
And this level of control extends all the way down to your physical hard drive. For encrypting your data when the computer's off, Linux uses an open standard called LUKS, which is designed for complete user control, with no ties whatsoever to a vendor's cloud account for recovery.
Now, the way LUKS works is it's really elegant. It doesn't use your password to encrypt the whole drive. That would be way too slow. Instead, it creates a super strong random master key that does all the heavy lifting. Your password is only used to lock and unlock that tiny master key. What this means is if you want to change your password, the system doesn't have to re-encrypt terabytes of data. It just re-encrypts that one tiny key, which takes less than a second. It's just brilliant.
Okay, so we've seen the philosophy and we've seen the architecture. But what does all this mean in practice? Well, it means moving beyond simply using a different desktop. It means achieving true digital sovereignty by taking your data back from big tech and hosting it yourself on a system that you completely control. And this just perfectly illustrates that ecosystem of freedom. For every major proprietary cloud service, there's a powerful open-source alternative you can run on your own Linux server. Instead of Google Drive, you can run Nextcloud. Instead of Google Docs, there's Nextcloud Office. And look, this isn't just about avoiding a monthly fee. It's about owning your own infrastructure. You are in complete control of the software, and most importantly, you're in control of your data.
So when you pull all of this together, you start to see that choosing an operating system is no longer just a technical preference. It is a fundamental strategic choice you make about your data and your personal freedom.
You know, people often talk about the cons of Linux, but I love how this reframes them. That steep learning curve, that's really just the responsibility that comes with taking back control. Limited software availability, that's the trade-off you make for rejecting vendor lock-in. And that lack of standardization, that's the very diversity that creates that powerful community immune system we were talking about. They aren't flaws, they're simply the costs of freedom.
And finally, a quick word on security. Linux isn't magic. It's not immune to attacks. Its strength lies in its resilience. Because the code is open, a global community of experts is constantly auditing it. So when vulnerabilities are found, they are often patched within hours, a cycle that is dramatically faster than you'll ever see from a commercial vendor.
So, it all comes down to this. Choosing a proprietary OS is an act of data delegation. You're handing over your sovereignty for convenience. But choosing Linux, that is an act of data responsibility. It is a conscious strategic decision. It is a declaration of technological independence.